Today's video is brought to you by Mindful Marketing. They use ads to get you off using ads. Most e-commerce brands rely heavily on Facebook and Google ads for the majority of their revenue. At Mindful Marketing, they use paid ads to build you a community of loyal and repeat customers that will exist long after Facebook and Google. So go to mindfulmarketing.co to find out more. All right, I am here with Scott Brinkman from Nom Nom. Scott, welcome to Secrets to Scaling Your E-commerce Brand.
Thanks so much, Jordan. It's nice to be here. Excited to chat.
Totally. I feel like this is going to be like a super marketing nerd chat. Yes. Scott is the VP of growth over there. And so, this is an awesome conversation. You guys know, I have conversations with founders all the time. These are, these growth people, these are the people I really want to talk to, okay? So I'm really looking forward to this. Scott, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Of course. So I sort of have a funny story with Nom Nom, and I'm certainly not your standard growth marketer. I actually helped found the business 6 years ago. Co-founders and I are all close and personal friends. And I ended up leaving about 6 months later because I moved to Chicago from San Francisco and just couldn't do sort of the early stage remotely at the time. But if you fast forward to this January in 2020, I rejoined to run growth. My background is actually entirely in product management and also in B2B software product management and product leadership.
Interesting.
So I have
totally
a very different perspective. Yeah. If you could probably guess, I'm not much of a brand person, but all of this sort of analytical background and approach to sort of how you build effective software that drives value is in the same perspective that I've brought to growth at Nom Nom. And it has been a wild ride. 2020 certainly has been a wild ride for all of us. But proud to say, as we look back on the year, it's been by far our best year ever, and we're set up for a really exciting next couple of years.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about the company, just for some context around the conversation that we're going to have today.
Yeah, for sure. So Nom Nom is a pet health company that helps our pets live longer, happier lives through better nutrition. And namely, that is a food for the most part, but we do have probiotics, we have supplements, we even have a microbiome test kit where we will assay all of the genetics of your animal's gut bacteria. But we firmly believe that, we've been accidentally feeding our dogs and cats pretty terrible things. And again, it's not anyone's fault, but we try to bring a very scientific approach to it. Frankly, most pet marketing is just that. It's just marketing, little science involved. So we have a science team on staff and all of our recipes are made by us. So that's another big part. The fresh food category, if you sort of had to orient where it is in the universe of dog and cat food, on our right-hand side would be raw feeders. Yep. And then on the left-hand side would be your premium kibble, fresh pets of the world. Fresh just means human grade ingredients. So these are literally the same ingredients that you and I eat, but formulated obviously for our pets.
Interesting. Okay. Super cool. Well, let's have a conversation about how you guys actually get your product in front of people. I can imagine that particular interest, I'm just thinking just Facebook marketing wise, is absolutely saturated with brands trying to get in front of pet owners. Is that true? Or do you guys kind of have this blue ocean of hey, yeah, we can just get in front of people and they'll purchase and $5 CPAs and
oh jeez. We have so we have a compounding challenge in that on one hand we are a premium subscription good, and the reality is we are 3 to 4 times more expensive than a bag of kibble. And so not only are we 3 to 4 times more expensive, but as I mentioned, we are a subscription. On top of that, we are even higher consideration purchased because changing your dog's food is a major decision. This is a major decision of what you're feeding an animal that you care for. And also the transition process is, to put it politely, tricky. Moving from one food to another, for anybody who's a pet owner who's tried to do it, it can get literally messy. So for all those reasons, we are a very high consideration purchase. And then of course, on the flip side is getting this high consideration purchase in front of people is also challenging and certainly is pretty expensive. There are plenty of other, there are a few other players in the category, but the reality too is that just that dog and cat food marketing budgets across America are already in the many billions of dollars. And so carving out a niche and then communicating what we're doing effectively within that niche has been a like every digital and brand, especially digitally native brand, has been quite a challenge. But we've developed some pretty interesting strategies to help.
Let's talk about some of those strategies, because I'm very interested in what works for that sphere. I love high-end products. I think that they're the funnest to market. Every time our sales guys, so I also run a marketing agency. Anytime that our sales guys bring us, high ticket items, I'm like, yes, because there's a certain way to market. I'd love to hear how you guys are doing it, and then I'm going to steal your ideas.
Great. Yes, please do. Yeah, so it is interesting because we are like a really high-end good, we're premium good, but it's for animals. And then also but again, humans buy it. And it's also food. And so we have this sort of interesting triangulation, not only of value props, but of also how do we sort of begin to build audiences. And that is really where this starts. The average, if you're looking at CPMs and things like that, right now things are terrible because holidays and Black Friday and everything else.
Yeah.
And good news for us is we are a subscription business. So this is actually the time of year that's most quiet for us, unlike pretty much every other e-commerce business. Because our year has been made well before this, just because of the nature of subscription revenue. But we've learned a lot this year about how to approach first just finding the right audiences. And largely on Facebook, just because this makes it easy and you can iterate rather quickly. The big lesson that we learned was we went from pretty broad match audiences where we can achieve low CPMs and fairly low CPAs in our world, I guess, just for we're an order of magnitude and more above that $5 target. A very, very high CPA target. So very, very high.
Just so everyone knows, I haven't seen an account with a CPA of $5 unless it's like a lead gen just getting an email address in a long time. So
yes,
just wanted to throw that out there.
Good. Yeah, I would. We would all kill for that. So broad match is great to start. You can anchor yourself, but frankly, the way that we look at things from a growth perspective, and this has been a big lesson this year, has been moving from sort of conversions, which is obviously where you start, and CPA, to LTV. Things like ROAS actually don't apply to us because we're a subscription, right? ROAS makes sense if you have a transactional good where you have to make money. We don't make money on the first, and we don't make it on the second, right? We have an entire LTV and LTV payback model that we have to optimize around. But the challenge is it takes a really long time to learn what the lifetime value is. In fact, it takes so long, you can't make marketing decisions upon it, right? If you waited for every campaign to have a year's worth of data, you'd never change your campaigns, which just doesn't work. And so what we had to do this year was really get serious about two things. One was optimizing towards a sort of moment in the life cycle of the customer. That was the strongest signal we had to them being a good meaning high revenue, high LTV customer, but close enough to the time of purchase and therefore the time of impression and everything else that we could make fundamental sort of campaign creative decisions around that, which we did, and has been really transformative in how we look at every dollar spent, whether it be Facebook or anywhere else. Because we're optimizing around that LTV moment.
So what is your number one KPI though, as far as Facebook ads are concerned? Or Google ads or whatever ads.
Our number one KPI is still going to be CPA. Although again, we're very brutal. We do 1 day click, 1 day view. Because
you do. Can we just go into that for our audience for a sec here? So you do 1 day click, 1 day view attribution. That is mean. It's very mean.
Brutal. I'm not very nice, as Elise, who's listening in, can attest. I'm not nice. It's because I'm not a marketer. And so from my perspective, learning, again, I came in knowing nothing about the space, and learning as I joined was that, while a 30-day look back, for example, makes us feel really good, right, as marketers about how successful a campaign was or was not, and is still useful for judging things like creative. So we still look at that sort of views just to see what's resonating from a creative perspective. But at the end of the day, the growth function is a revenue function. And so we only succeed if actual human beings give us money, not a pixel firing as it's backfilling all of your CPA and making you look good for the next 30 days. Yeah. And so that's what we pivoted. We just said, this is gonna suck, to put it plainly. And it does. It makes you feel very, very bad. But it gives us a really clear picture of a dollar in, dollar out. What are we earning from any given campaign, which is important.
Totally. I love that. It's from my perspective, it's interesting because I own a mid 7-figure clothing brand. And so I don't really care what ROAS numbers are, like any of that kind of stuff, because I just know this is our budget and this is what we're growing at and this is what we're going to do. But as an agency owner and, managing all of our team, we base everything on ROAS, right? And we have to. It's just the only way that you can. So it's an interesting dichotomy versus, like, I get exactly what you're saying as a business owner. Like, I want 1 day click, 1 day view attribution. That's it. But as a consumer, I'm thinking to myself, but I've made so many decisions from seeing products and then going direct to the website later. Is there any way that you can marry what I'm trying to say together?
Totally.
Like, am I crazy?
No, you're spot on. It's not incorrect, right? It's not like wildly inaccurate. Sure, people are influenced, right? And I can talk about multi-click attribution models and multi-touch attribution models, which we also have, which is the other thing that we're looking at all the time.
Have you tried Hyros?
What?
Have you tried Hyros yet?
No, we built our own.
Okay.
Which has been fun because I'm a big data.
That sounds like your background.
Yeah, exactly. It's super nerdy.
Hey guys, can I build some software?
Yep, exactly. And so you're right, it is influenced. And so that's why some of those looks are still valuable. But if you're really just want to get brutal about what's the ROI of any given campaign or piece of creative, you end up just having to anchor towards the reality of revenue. And the other thing that everybody else knows is attribution loss, is that if you added up the conversions over any given time frame that every platform was telling you, I don't know, you tell me. In my world, that's a 20 to 30% swing, where there's 20 to 30% more attributions than actually exist in our customer base, which is no way to run a business either, right? That's just like, again, it is useful for some use cases, but it's just challenging. And so we just had to rip the Band-Aid off.
Now, I want to ask, and this is a total leading question. Are you getting any other information from the customer on this, or are you just taking data?
We are. So, I mean, we collect quite a bit of information, being direct to consumer. We collect, quite a bit of information about them and their pet, and that's actually critical for the product experience because we do personalize these recipes. So we know lots about them. We're also shipping it directly to them, which is important. Certainly, and there's some interesting outcomes in sort of, types of customers and types of pets and what that means in terms of revenue and growth and things like that. So we do know a lot about our customers, which has been important. And an important part of to your original question about sort of audience building. We've also learned that our customers are surprisingly diverse. And that has been really a challenge this year when we've started to do some pretty serious customer research.
Interesting. Can you walk me through that a little bit? Where's the diversity coming from? Are we talking interest diversity or what?
Demographic. So we always knew we were a female dominant business, certainly, which is true. But we had a sort of conception that we were pretty heavily weighted in sort of the like Gen X sort of age range. And what we actually discovered as we did a bunch of customer research is that we actually have a really nice distribution. We've got the millennial, we've got the Gen X, which is certainly like a large sort of locus, but all the way through to, to retirees and beyond, which is great, right? On one hand, this is a product that resonates with sort of the major generational curves of people in the US. On the other hand, it makes like targeting really challenging, right? It makes really challenging. It makes it all really challenging. And so
creative.
On one hand, we're like, well, this is great. Like, look, we did this without even knowing it. On the other hand, all right, so how do we optimize, for each of these different audiences?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that comes to mind right away is, well, you're not going to have to advertise on TikTok.
No TikTok. We have not had to do that yet. I don't. We posted one organic video, and I was like, I had to download it, obviously, to figure out what's going on. I was like, I don't think this is for us, guys. I don't think this one's for us. We're going to wait this one out.
I want to give an encouragement to you and to everybody listening to this as well. So we run a mastermind as well. And there's some members in there who are spending some substantial dollar figures on TikTok, different industry, different target demographic, but are seeing incredible results. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, just letting you guys know, if your target demo is there, if they're the 18 to 24-year-old female, male, go for it and try it. We've been seeing some interesting results. That's all I wanted to say.
I mean, we are obsessed with testing, and so we'll test literally anything.
I'd love to hear the craziest. What's the craziest thing that you've tested? I had something in my notes.
Oh yeah, what is the craziest thing we've tested?
I'm thinking that
so we approach all of our advertising with a really intense testing sort of methodology. In Facebook Creative, we launch new campaigns and concepts every week. We have 20 to 50 variants per test, so you can just do the math quickly on how many variants we've tested this year, all in-house too, which has been fun from a creative standpoint. But I think craziest platform we've tested.
I'm thinking the taxi one.
The taxi
I saw that in my
fun.
notes.
Yeah. That's probably the flashiest, certainly. Yeah, we did, we got access to sort of like an early beta. Halo bought this sort of over taxi replacement for the weird triangle thing, seen with like usually advertising like cabaret stuff in New York City. Yeah. And they're like digital and they're location aware. And so we were like, well, we've never done out of home. I can't imagine this is going to work, but if we're going to be committed to testing, we better start testing. And so
were the CPMs pretty low?
CPMs were very, very low. Again, if you believe the math, but again, you have to sort of believe the math, right? But the idea we had was, since they're location aware, we launched in New York City and all 5 boroughs, and we only basically played our ad spot when the taxi or the Lyft was within a quarter mile of a dog park. So we mapped every dog park, and then we only played it when we were within a quarter mile of the dog park. And the hypothesis was, well, even though it's the middle of a pandemic and it's not exactly the best time to try out of home because most people aren't out of their homes, dog owners in New York have only one place to go. They have to go to the dog park to exercise the dog. And so this is actually a pretty interesting test. And so we did. We tested it. It didn't work. Like literally we could measure absolutely no change. Like not to traffic, literally nothing.
How would you have measured it, Scott?
So all we were looking for was any increase in traffic to
direct
to our home
traffic.
Page. Direct traffic. That's all we cared about. And if we could measure anything, we would have said, well, that's cool. I don't think again, being a very performance-minded growth team, I don't think it would have been a big part of our mix. But we literally just couldn't measure them.
Have you guys added post-purchase surveys into your
we do. We have post-purchase surveys and we're pretty decently sophisticated about it. We basically just nag people until they tell us. But we have all the randomization of questions. We have all that sort of good stuff built in.
Cool.
And that is a pretty important part of how we sort of determine, again, I think to your original point, I put a lot of weight in where people tell me they came from, because they're probably, again, through retargeting and everything else, they've probably seen us a few times, and whatever they perceive to be true, as far as I'm concerned, is reality, from a customer perspective.
I'm totally with you. We recently did this with our clothing company. We took a look at the data we were using this app called Prove It, and we took the data and I don't take any of Shopify's data correct anyway, but we took Shopify's data versus customer reported data on the exact same transactions, and Shopify over-reported search versus what people said. It was like 10% of people say that they're coming in via search. Interestingly, they way underreported social. Social is actually the after word of mouth was the highest for us. So I was like, man, I am so glad I'm getting this data. We're trying to roll it out to every single client, not to prove that our social is working better than anything else. It's to actually know where to put the money, right, and where to put our efforts. And anyway, I'm totally I'm loving this conversation right now, Scott. This is good stuff.
That's great. No, we see something very similar. If you look at all of our click attribution, first, last, any other way, social is wildly underreported compared to what people tell us, right? When they actually come in and say, yeah, I heard of you guys on Facebook, I heard of you guys wherever. And so it's spot on. And the workflow that we believe to be true, and if you look at sort of the way we're tracking the first and last click, seems to be true, is that just people use Google because they see the ad, they think about it when they're back on their couch having a cocktail at the end of the night because there's nothing else to do in 2020. And they Google it real quick, and then they click, they click on your brand term, they come in. And so as a result, brand and SEM tend to get over-reported from the sort of the tracking code perspective.
Totally.
But again, having that survey helps you sort of counterweight that.
Scott, let's talk about 2021. What do you see happening? What are some things that you're going to want to test this next year coming up? This is probably going to come out early January. So I think this is really good timing.
Yeah. I think what we have spent, what's interesting is we spent all of Q4 aggressively testing new channels and partners and literally everything, every sort of a hypothesis we can, because we're getting ready for Q1. And obviously, as I mentioned, being a subscription business, Q1 is the most important quarter of the year by far, just because every dollar
for acquisition.
Oh yeah,
or
for acquisition.
Okay.
And it's weird because, again, this is where like things like ROAS and these things don't maybe make sense because we're a subscription business, but it's because for every customer we acquire in January, so every dollar that we acquire in January, we can charge that person 12 more times. Well, 11 more times after January, and everybody in February, I can charge 10 more times. In March, I can charge 9 more times, right? So every dollar we acquire earlier in the year is worth more to us from, again, the lens of hitting a year's target. Over a long, long time scale, none of this matters, but over hitting annual targets, that's why Q1 is absolutely critical, and January is the most critical, which is great because right now we don't have to get too aggressive in the markets because CPMs are terrible and everything. Yeah. Again, everybody's trying to really make their year now. We're able to test and then get ready for a really, really, really aggressive push starting in January, which is going to be the plan. We'll be testing, the big bet we're going to be testing is OTT. We've never done TV of any variety. It's terrifying for a performance marketing team who's highly analytical.
Yeah, I'm ready to turn this off right now, Scott.
I know.
I'm too scared.
I know. We have a couple of interesting hypotheses. Unsurprisingly, OTT is interesting because of the targeting, and so everything we've learned in targeting this year, we are able to apply to it. Yeah. And build a really, really highly segmented test. Again, I don't think it's going to be the linchpin of our growth strategy, but it behooves us to test because, again, we're always looking for ways to differentiate our channels and continue to de-risk any one channel.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Can you talk to me? How are you doing that? How are you running those ads? Are you using a certain platform, certain partner to run those?
Yeah, so we're going direct to the platform. So, we've talked to all the name brands you'd expect, the Hulus and the Rokus and everybody else. And so that's our approach for this test. We talked to a couple of agencies, and the challenge with because even TV agencies tend to be pretty traditional, even if they're running on things like OTT. The opacity just is too hard from a cost basis, right? It's like, you're not quite sure how much of every dollar is going anywhere, right? How much of it is to overhead and agency? How much of it is going in media?
That's why digital is so beautiful, right? Is that like, generally you just see exactly, it's like, okay, here's your Facebook fees, here's your agency fees. There you go.
There it is. It's as simple as that. And so that just turned us off, frankly. And the reality is like, well, we were going to have to build our own creative spot anyway. And so like, well, if we're going to do all that work,
yeah, you have your performance team there already. So
they're exactly. We're here and we're ready to go. And so let's just pick a channel, again, set up the best hypotheses we can, and then run it like any other channel, and we'll see. So
awesome. Well, I want to know how that goes. So I would love if you'd report back to me because I'm very interested to see that. Scott, we're kind of coming a little bit closer to the end here. I could ask the question I ask everybody on this podcast. What is your secret to scaling?
Our secret to scaling was learning more about our customers, frankly. We had a bunch of assumptions, and some were true, but many were actually quite false. And when we learned who they really were and what they were really doing and what they really cared about outside of their pet, that really transformed sort of all of our tactics, frankly, sort of overnight. We went from everything from tactics like broad match and interest-based marketing to completely lookalike based and a bunch of other things. And so the secret to scaling for us it sounds sort of trite, but it is very true, which is analytically understanding our customers as well as talking to them. But once we build a large enough sort of data stack about who our customers were, it really changed how we approached scaling this year.
Awesome. Great answer. Scott, you should be a podcast host. You're just so good on Mike.
You are far too nice.
I'm gonna move on to our lightning round here.
All right.
Okay. What is your favorite tool or app that you're using right now?
In growth or just in life?
Just in general, just the first thing that comes to your mind.
First thing that comes to mind. Oh, I'm using Whoop right now.
Oh, what's that?
Which is another D2C company that does it's like sort of fitness tracking, but it's fitness and sleep. And they have there's some interesting science around like how recovered you are. They measured something called like heart rate variability, which basically says like how long between heartbeats And the longer the heartbeats, the more recovered you are. Decent science behind it. But it's been cool to see, like, I mean, you intrinsically know how you slept, but to be able to then break it down by all the different cycles and then see like, oh, okay, today's a good day to really push it in the gym or whatever else has been fun. And it's like, their business model is fascinating. It's free to start, and then it's a subscription, and the band thing costs nothing. So I've been nerding out about that.
Interesting. I love looking into companies like that. Oh man, that's cool. Great. Well, I mean, you combine hardware and software all together there. That's wonderful. Exactly. Which is the future. It's the future.
Wow. Yeah. Mashed together.
It's actually the present. Is what it is.
Yeah, it's literally what we're all living.
Scott, favorite podcast that you're listening to right now?
Podcast. I have a seedy background in software engineering, and so I don't get to code much anymore. But I do enjoy just nerding out about coding things. So I've been watching I've been listening to the Vanilla JavaScript podcast, which has been fun, just to kind of keep an ear to the ground in what's happening in engineering land.
That's awesome. I think you're like the first, software dude that we've had on here.
Oh, so. I mean, just to be clear, I was a psychology major in undergrad and learned how to share. I was a liberal artist, but picked it up somewhere along the way and ended up falling in love with it.
Oh, that's awesome. Scott, one more question for you. If you could sit down for an hour, have a beer, some wine, some coffee, some tea with anybody, they have to be alive, who would it be?
Have to be alive. Oh, that's an easy one. That's Obama.
Oh, yes.
That's, man himself.
Wouldn't that just be such a great...
It would just be
I'm a Canadian, but man, would I ever like to sit down with him.
Just like a nice beer with Obama and just listen. Just shut up. I think it would be amazing.
He'd just have that big laugh and...
I know, exactly. And it's the best.
Yeah. I know recently, like we watch late night comedy like every single night. And Obama's been on his little book tour recently, and it's just like, oh, what a wonderful man, Thank you for coming on and just being a class act.
Yeah, just an absolute gem. The best.
Great answer, Scott. Scott, where can people find out more about you and Nom Nom?
Yeah, you can find us at nomnomnow.com. And me, I'm somewhere on the internet, probably LinkedIn or wherever else people go to find.
It's probably where we connected, I'm guessing.
Yeah, probably where you find information on professionals.
Yeah.
Those are the best places to find me. I am not, as you probably can't arch up, not big on the socials, so don't really have the Twitters or anything else, or even Facebook. But always happy to connect with anybody who wants to talk shop.
That's awesome. Scott, thank you so much for being on. This is an awesome conversation. I really enjoyed this, and I think this is going to really propel people into this next year in 2021, thinking about some things that they can test. So thank you so much for being on. And I hope everyone has a great week.
Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate it.
Wait! Before you go, in the description, we've got some incredible e-commerce only resources for you to help scale your store from wherever you are into the mid 7-figure, 8-figure, maybe even mid 8-figure range this year. So look in the description below for some incredible free resources that we've given to you guys, and we really want to see you guys succeed.